I'm Steve Kornacki, national political correspondent for NBC News and MSNBC, and today at NBCU Academy, I'm going to take you behind the story on how I covered the Georgia runoff election for two critical Senate seats in January of 2021. And when I'm on the air for big election nights like that one, I know there are going to be a lot of people watching, and as the data and numbers expert on our team, people are going to be looking to me for a lot of specific information and context. Going live on television on a night like this requires a balance of preparation and agility. Why was this a big story? Well, in Georgia, no one gets elected to the Senate unless they actually get 50% plus one of the vote. An outright majority is required. And as it turned out, there were two Senate seats that were up for election in 2020. There is a runoff in the Senate election. Nobody got to 50%. The second piece of it was how important were those elections going to be? And when all the dust settled from the November 2020 election, you couldn't have scripted it like this. If Democrats pick up both of these seats, 50-48 becomes 50-50. And because Joe Biden had been elected president and Kamala Harris vice president, and the vice president breaks any 50-50 tie in the Senate, that meant that if Democrats could win both seats in Georgia, they would have control of the U.S. Senate, and that would mean that they'd have Joe Biden as president, they'd have control of the House, and they would end up with control of the Senate, but only if they could sweep those two runoff elections in Georgia. So this was one of the races, and this is the final result. This is what happened in January. Raphael Warnock, the Democrat, defeated Kelly Loeffler. Kelly Loeffler was the incumbent. You can see it says that right there, but she had been appointed to the seat about a year earlier. So this was a special election. And the other seat that was up was the one that was normally up, and that was the Republican incumbent, David Perdue, and he was being challenged by the Democrat, Jon Ossoff. And in that race, again, in November, neither candidate actually cracked 50% because there was a third-party candidate who picked up 2 or 3%. So again, nobody got 50% in this one in November. Nobody got 50% in the David Perdue, Jon Ossoff race in November. Both of them went to a January runoff. How did I prepare to cover the Georgia runoff? Very thoroughly, and it still didn't feel like enough. Studying up on the counties in Georgia, there's almost 160 of them. What are the demographic patterns within those counties? What are the voting histories in those counties? Trying to set sort of benchmarks in my mind, county by county for, if Warnock is hitting this number in this county, he's getting what he needs. If Loeffler's hitting this number in this county, she's getting what she needs. I wanted to have clear benchmarks in my mind, basically for every county in the state, so that when the votes start coming in during the night, and we're not going to know exactly what order they're going to come in, but whatever order they come in, I wanted to be able to have some sort of interpretation in real time of what it meant, even if it was kind of a seemingly random small county in the state. How did things play out on the air that night? Well, it was faster than the November general election. I will say that. That lasted about 4 days. Georgia was settled really finally the afternoon after the election. So that was lightning fast compared to November. But it was a situation where there was complexity to how it went from election night starts to the Democrats win both seats. What happened was, a lot of counties around the state, and this was something we were expecting, a lot of counties around the state, the first thing that they tallied up and that they reported out was the vote that was cast on Election Day. And that was a very Republican vote. The folks who went and voted on Election Day at polling places in person, kind of the traditional way of doing it, just the way these patterns have been in Georgia and elsewhere, that's a heavily Republican vote. And so you had Republican candidates actually opening up pretty substantial leads. If you were just watching, I'm going to say 10, 11 o'clock at night, something like that, you had what looked like pretty substantial leads for the Republican candidates. We have seen Republicans building and building this number over the last 2 hours or so, but we knew there were an awful lot of Democratic votes that were still to come in that Atlanta metro area.
Steve Kornacki remains at the board. Steve, I assume you've refreshed the DeKalb County numbers no fewer than 20 times in the time it took us to have a commercial break.
So the challenge for me on the air in telling that story, and I'm thinking here 10:30, 11, midnight, don't hold me to these exact times because election nights become a blur for me when I try to reconstruct them afterwards. But I remember there was a period there, I'm going to say of a couple hours, where every incremental update we were getting a bunch of small incremental updates from around the state, often from red counties, seemed to be pushing the Republican lead larger and larger. My challenge was to communicate to viewers, don't let that fool you. This is one of the most Democratic counties in the state, so when we get that update, again, it won't be all the early vote, but a big chunk of it, you can expect certainly that these numbers are going to move very dramatically. So it was important, I thought, to communicate that to viewers, and then, of course, that is what ended up happening. The votes that came, particularly out of those Atlanta metro areas, Warnock at some point that night caught Loeffler, pulled pretty far ahead, got declared the winner. What just happened that caused this race to be called for Raphael Warnock? And you can see the official call on our screen. We got another batch of votes from DeKalb County. In the other race, Jon Ossoff, the other Democrat, the same thing happened with him, but he wasn't doing quite as well as Warnock, so it took till the next day, but Ossoff was declared the winner then. The Georgia runoff, yeah, at least from my standpoint, preparation was key. In that sense, I got lucky. We had control of the U.S. Senate being decided by two Senate elections in one state. And I had, a month or so to prepare for it. So in that sense, I had the opportunity to really focus in on Georgia, to really understand it at a minute level. But I'm just reaching for, this is my reference for what we had in November. Because the challenge on election night, again, you look at this map, there are 160 counties, almost 160 counties on this map. And it's almost random in those early hours on election night. You have no idea what the next county to light up with results is going to be. The challenge for me is whatever county it is that lights up, I want to be able to click on it, show the numbers on the screen, and give some context to the viewer immediately about what that means. Oh, okay, Loeffler is winning this county 65 to 35, but she probably needs to be getting 70% here to be on track for, that. I want to be able to do that kind of thing in real time. And the only way I'm in position to do that in real time on election night is that preparation beforehand. So the preparation is key for it. It's just the more and more you review the numbers, you drill down on the numbers, you commit things to memory, you look at past elections, past data, the more and more you do that, the more and more you're putting yourself in position to be able to interpret things in real time and just roll with whatever surprises election night has for you. I'm Steve Kornacki for NBCU Academy, and thanks for joining me.